Welcome, everybody. I'm your host, Chris Noggle, and I've got an awesome guest for you today. A guest that not only comes from humble beginnings, multi-generational family in this space of real estate, but also does some really unique things not far from where I'm at over in New Jersey. So we're going to get into Gabe's story in just a second. But before we do that, let's talk about all of you. Let's talk about your journey to becoming a rebel banker. On that journey, all of you are seeking knowledge. You're out there scraping for knowledge. And that's a key word we're going to get into today, scraping. You're scraping for knowledge to get you where you want to be. But too many people think that knowledge is power, and knowledge is absolutely nothing. It will get you nowhere without application of knowledge. So today on this episode, I want you to really take something that you can apply immediately. Because if you don't take some of this knowledge you get today and apply it, you're going nowhere. And I'm going to challenge you on something else. Taking action is quite simple. And I'm going to test you on that. I'm going to give you something for free because that usually works. I'm going to give you my new booklet that I just came out with, Drifting Away from Traditional Car Buying. This booklet in about 63 pages teaches you how to get all the money back for all the cars you will ever buy, drive, and own. And the booklet can be yours for free. But you got to take action. And that action is go to chrisnoggle.com and then scroll one index finger down. You will see the booklet and register for a free webinar. Now, if you don't show up to the webinar, we'll send you a copy. But once you take action and you register, we will send you that booklet. Sometimes, folks, taking action, getting where you want to be is a very simple step, just like clicking a button. But too many people think, I'll get to that. And then they never do. And then they wonder why later in life they say, boy, I should have, I could have, I would have. Well, the guest today, Gabe DaSilva. Okay, let me give you a little bit more of a background. So Gabe DaSilva, he sent me over a bio that is 4 paragraphs long. He's known as Mr. Add-a-Level for his extensive knowledge in construction and heavy renovations. He does some really unique things because in his space where he's at in New Jersey, real estate's a difficult business. It's a tough thing. So a lot of times he's looking for hidden value, places that you and I might never look. And he's been incredibly successful doing that. But it's not just his success in real estate with flipping, with his add-a-level bus tours and his masterminds he does. The other thing Gabe does is gives. He is a giver and fully believes that if you give, you get. And you're going to hear a lot about that. You're going to hear about some of the traveling he does, some of the mission trips he takes to serve others and help other people solve their problem before he tries to solve his. Folks, all these little pieces, these little golden nuggets that I just told you about Gabe are things you all need to start doing in your life. Because if you live a life just for you, you're not going anywhere. You got to live a life that's bigger than you. You got to live a life to serve others, to give to others, to solve other people's problems. And then your entire life will change. Gabe, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, brother. Best podcast intro ever.
Thanks, man. Got a little bit of practice on that. So Gabe, tell everybody just a little bit about your business and what you do today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we are real estate investors, developers, and educators. We're primarily value add, construction heavy, fix and flip guys. So we take dated capes, ranches, bungalows. We rip off the roof. We double the square footage. We add on to the back. We add on to the side. In some cases, to your reference in the intro, we'll scrape the dirt and we'll put up a brand new colonial. We'll put up something that lives and feels and flows like homes people now want to buy, not like the chopped up stuff from the 50s and 60s. And we have to do that here. That's just the market that we're in. Like you alluded to in this part of New Jersey, it's tough to find deals. It's tough to find cosmetic rehabs. So this is our model. This is what we've done for 6 years now. We do it really well. And that's how we were coined Mr. Add-a-Level. Like that's our model.
And that's all through DaSilva Group, Inc., right? That's the company that you operate under?
That's our parent company. We have the operations division is DaSilva Homes. So we're a master builder. We have a supply company that supplies our operations division and other investors and developers and designers in the area under Silva Supply. So we just started expanding, creating verticals. We have an education company, like you alluded to again with giving back. Folks wanted to understand how it is that you do what you do. So we created Add-a-Level bus tour where people could shadow us. We created workshops where we teach what we do. It's not that complicated. It's just sticks and rocks. At the end of the day, construction's not that complicated. But so we created a vertical where we kind of teach folks how to do it so they can go out and do it on on their own.
That's awesome. Well, it didn't all just start and poof happen like so many people think. So what we got to do now, Gabe, is we got to take a trip back into those humble beginnings of where you began, what your life used to be like before all the success you have. So let's go back to those humble beginnings and tell the story of how you went from there to where you're at today, where you're actually able to give back and help people, or were you giving the entire time? That's what I want to know. So let's hear it.
Yeah. So I'll be fully transparent and open with no, like I was not a giver. I was a taker early on in my entrepreneurial journey, which started about 10 years ago, first in the food service space. And I did a 4-year stint there. And I didn't understand the power of give to get. I was all about take. And in the food service business, that's a lot of what you see. No excuse. That's just where I was in my journey at 28 years old. So did that for 4 years. What I did learn there is the power of systems and processes. Like the restaurant business is extremely unforgiving in that sense. Food has a shelf life. It's usually about a week. Then you're throwing out inventory. Like staff doesn't mess around, right? Payroll hits every Friday. If you're overstaffed, you're bleeding. So that business taught me how to be systematic about doing things, which in this business, you very rarely see. Any contractor who shows up, right? Like sometimes they have a clipboard, but more often than not, they're jotting down notes on the side of a 2x4, right? Or they're taking pictures with their cell phone and who knows what the hell they're doing with them. So I took stock of that and said, if I apply what I learned in the food service space to this space, we're going to be uber successful. We're going to really grow really fast. And yeah, we did. And I became a systems and process just savage. I embody traction by Gino Wickman, right? The EOS model. Absolutely. If your listeners are familiar with that, I like eat, sleep, and shit that. And that's been really powerful for us. That's how we've been able to scale the way that we have. So back to the humble beginnings thing. Yeah. I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew that if I logged the hours on the other side, I'd make it through. I just, my unwillingness I would bleed out of my eyes before I gave up. And so that's what, like that grit is what got me through 4 years in the food service industry. Fortunately, like with those 16-hour days, like I was learning things. And then I've been fortunate to apply them in this space for the last 6 years.
That's awesome. That's a great one. Now, when you went from the food service world and you came into the real estate world, like, you know, a lot of people don't get into real estate in any capacity because they think they need to first have a whole bunch of money. You know, it's a common misbelief, but so many people don't get into this industry for that very reason, the money, the resources. So how did you figure that piece out? Where did money come from in the beginning for the first few deals or first few renovations? What were you doing that allowed you to scale? I mean, 6 years isn't a long time. And then after we get to that, I want to talk a little bit about, you know, you've had almost a little bit of a tailwind behind you. You know, real estate's been pretty good for the last 6 years. So I want to talk a little bit about your thoughts of real estate, where we're at today, being that it's 2021. We've got kind of round 34 of COVID kicking back in, especially in your neck of the woods. Like, how is all this going to play into your future plans? But first, let's talk about the money side. Where'd the money come from?
Yeah. So I'd been zeroed out when I sold the restaurant. It didn't work out. I mean, that's a whole nother podcast, but it didn't work out the way I had planned. And so I had been zeroed out as an entrepreneur. That's happened to me twice now. And so you start from zero. So it's not about lack of resources. It's about lack of resourcefulness. And a mentor had early on had shared that with me. And then you're looking for any excuse not to get started, right? I don't have money. I don't have experience. I can't find deals. Well, that's an invisible script. Those are limiting beliefs. Those are things that keep us locked up. So I went to networking events like most of your listeners might have when they started. And I just made a conscious effort each time as I met new people to say something different each month or each week, depending on how often these things met. And so it forced me to take some sort of action each month so I wouldn't have to give the same canned intro each time. So I'm sitting across the table from people month after month. They're saying the same things. I'm saying new things. I'm saying I studied for, or I tested for my real estate license, or I wrote this many offers. I sent this many mailers. I drove for dollars for this many hours. And so early on, that's how I was generating momentum. That's how I was holding myself accountable. And then when the deals came, I had already fostered really strong relationships with lenders at these networking events because I already started to position myself as an investor. I genuinely believed that I was an investor. And I'm not talking about the fake it till you make it thing. I'm talking about like I had internalized what it is to be an investor. I was showing up to these meetings with investment summaries for deals, showing people, hey, if I get this deal, this is what it would look like. Would you consider lending? Nobody else is everyone's showing up with business cards and they all have the same canned image on it, the same stock image of like a house turned upside down. Like that's not going to help you stand out. What does is each time your introduction is different. Each time you're bringing something different to the table. And so when the time came to get the deal funded, it wasn't hard. It just frankly wasn't. I didn't get the best terms. I paid 3 and 13 on my first deal, but right. Like, folks say hard money's too expensive. You know, it's like more expensive, not doing a deal, like never doing the deal.
Well said.
So I spent the money. I don't recall what they made, but I know I made 82,000. So like that first deal, that's the one that generated the momentum that got me going. But the money's there. It's really just about positioning yourself as someone who is believable. Like, are you a good sponsor? Can people wrap their head around giving you money? Like, will they believe in you? Will you pay it back? And a lot of that's a character thing and it's an awareness piece. And that's what I was doing at those networking events. For months, I was going to those things and I just made a conscious effort to position myself as the guy I genuinely wanted to be.
Well, that's really cool. And, you know, I've been to a ton of those and you're right. A lot of people, they show up for the coffee, for whatever's free, and they bring business cards, sometimes not even a real estate business card. It's just like whatever business they're in. And they just sit there, they get all fired up. They go home and they do absolutely nothing. It gets back to what I talked about earlier. Like, why are you showing up? Like, why do you come to the game? Do you come to the game to sit on the sidelines and just watch all the other players actually out there living their perfect day, living their dream? Or are you just there to sit on the sideline and say, boy, they're doing a great job. You know, let's hope someday I can get out there. You'll never get in the game. Never, because you just show up and you never have intention to actually make your dreams and your realities happen. And I love what you talked about, how you showed up with deals. Like you weren't even doing them yet, but you showed up and you crunched the numbers. You put the deals together. You started talking to people about raising private money. You were going through the motions because it'd be like anything else, like, you know, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill's book, or anything, the Bible. They all talk about the universal law. You know, if you dream it, you believe it, you can achieve it. It's just not that simple. Like, it's not, oh, I had a dream last night. Oh, I'm still thinking about it. It's, well, how come it hasn't happened yet? You actually have to go out there and do stuff to make it happen. Like, I don't know what's happened to society lately, but everybody's gotten really lazy and everybody's got their hand out waiting for someone else to give them something. And that right there is a trap, and it's going to land everybody not where they want to be. Matter of fact, I was going to say something else. We'll just leave that off of this. You're like, get up and make your life happen like he did. He became an investor before he was an investor because he knew that's what he wanted to do. So he took action and just did it every time and stood out. Like, take your business cards, shove them straight up your ass. I don't mean to be an asshole, but like literally throw your business cards in the trash can. Nobody wants your business card. Nobody cares. Nobody's going to do anything with it. They're going to throw it out. So show up with the intent to actually do something. Show up and make a difference. Show up and do something different than everybody else is doing. That's exactly what Gabe did. I'm on a fired up mode today, so you guys are getting me in rare form, but you know what? That's the truth. I don't get business cards out. When someone asks you for a business card, you might as well just say, listen, stop trying to be nice. You don't want my business card. You're not going to call me. You're not going to email me. Like, let's talk business right now. What do you want my business card for? And are we going to do business? And how do I solve your problems? That's the best business card you'll ever get. And then they hand you their business card, rip it up. Pull your phone out and put their phone number in your phone. Take a picture of them because, Matt, you know, now all of a sudden you took the action and you put the number in and then you took a photo of them so you remember who they are. And then communicate with them right away. Don't wait a week. Hit them up like in an hour after the event. Hey, we just met at the RIA. I just wanted to make sure you had my contact information. Let's get coffee tomorrow. Oh, sorry, you're busy tomorrow. How about the next day? Oh, you got things going on? Stop making excuses. Let's do this. That's how things get done.
You know, to piggyback off that, because it's really powerful. what I realize now as you're speaking is what I was doing differently, because I wasn't giving them business cards. I was showing them my investment summary. I was bringing value. Like if you had never modeled a deal before, you were getting value from seeing how I did it. If you did model deals, you were able to kind of pick apart mine and give me some feedback. My new value add business card is the book you see over my shoulder now. I don't give business cards. I created a book that documents 100 mistakes I made in the first 3 years of flipping houses. It's called the Flip Tips book. And that's what I give people now as my business card. Like bring value to people. And if you're new in the game, there's ways you can bring value. There's something that you have a unique skill set. Like whatever your gift is, you operate in your gift. You likely don't even know that you do it. That's the thing that you need to package and offer to people when you meet them, especially at these RIAs. People just want to say they're real estate investors because they attend these events and eat the free food. Like you're not an investor till you buy something. Like just that's it, flat out.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. And you're absolutely right. You know, what you were doing is not only providing value, but more importantly, the value we're providing was solving somebody else's problem. I mean, if you had a deal and you're structuring the deal and talking about this deal at the event, there's somebody in that audience that is looking to place some money and lend some money because they need their money working for them. They've worked their whole lives. They've worked in a crappy job that wasn't what they wanted to do because they listened to somebody else tell them what their life should look like. And then all of a sudden they realized one day, holy crap, I've been living the big lie my entire life. And they go out and they actually start doing something and they've got all this money from that job that they worked and they need to make that money work because they realize working for money isn't how you become wealthy. It's making your money work for you. So you're providing value in the form of solving that guy's problem. And his problem is he doesn't know how to make his money go work yet because he doesn't have your deal to fund. But now you just solved that problem. And then in turn, he could solve your problem. You see, folks, when you solve other people's problems, your problems automatically get solved. It's not the other way around. But you're right. Like earlier in this, you talked about, you know, the selfish you, you know, the you, or whatever we want to call that, where you were out there doing everything for you, the bigger car, the faster car, the bigger house. Like it's always me, 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 me. We live in a me society, not a we society anymore, you know, and that's one of the problems. But you change that and you started actually saying, I'm going to actually take part in this. I'm going to be an investor before I'm an investor, before I get a deal, by actually going out and doing it. And doing that, you were solving other people's problems, which is why you stood out amongst all the people that were there. So 6 years, I've been doing real estate a long time, but I've been in the Wall Street world for a very long time, and everything's cyclical. I don't care if you've read the book, The Four Turning, or anything else about different patterns and different cycles in the markets and in our lives. But we are upon a very important one right now. You know, from 2008 straight through today, 2021, we've been in a bull market. 2008 was the last big recession. Now, some people would say last year with COVID, but that was a blip. That was kind of what we would just call a V. The W hasn't happened yet. Now, in real estate, there's a ton of demand. You're seeing that, like you're scraping dirt because there's so much demand. You got to provide what people want. But what are you doing to get ready for what could be coming for the storm? Or do you think there's a storm coming in the real estate world? Or do you just think that there's so much demand that it's going to push through any market downturn and we're going to go there? I'd love your take on this.
Mm-hmm. So I'm of the belief that you don't have to do more of what you did to get where you are, to get where you want to go. Like consistency will serve you to a point, and at some point it stops serving you. So the thing that we learned how to do really, really well, construction heavy value add fix and flips. Like if you can flip a house, you can flip an office building. So we're taking that same unique skill set and we're just shifting it to a different asset class where the ROI is greater. And it just so happens that right now commercial is getting slaughtered. So the opportunities are there now to shift to commercial. Not to say that there aren't opportunities in residential. Anything you can put debt on that cash flows, you should be buying right now. Like debt is cheap and you'll be paying it back with inflated dollars. So lever up and acquire things that cash flow. So that's what our model looks like now. We're keeping a lot of the stuff we're doing and we're shifting into commercial as well. I don't know what the market's going to do, frankly. Like as an economist, which I follow plenty of them, real smart people, and they've all got different opinions on what's going to happen. So I'm trying to stay focused on what we can control, which is how do we like squeeze the most out of this unique skill set that we have? And then what asset class do we want to be focused on in the coming 18 to 24 months? I just don't think And even with EOS and traction and the Gino Wickman stuff we were talking about earlier, the 3-year picture, the 10-year plan, like I throw the 10-year plan thing out the window. I can't see beyond 3 years. It just, so much stuff happens. We move so fast anyway that like we'll be pivoting, we'll be shifting, we'll be creating new verticals. We're in new businesses every year. So I don't look beyond 3 years. I think those that are doing deals now, like us, we're blessed. Like we're selling things before they're done for more than we thought we'd get. Like that's a blessing. That's the market. Where's that going? This year it'll stay where it is, I suspect. Fed's not even thinking about raising rates and all that. So I don't think there's going to be a shift in that sense. Demand's started to level out here, so we're not getting multiple offers above asking on the first day. that's kind of stopped, but still demand is strong, and anything that I can build, I will build. And to your point about scraping dirt, like that's what we're having to do now. People can get more money. They want to buy more house, whether they need it or not. And we got to build it for them.
So now with your building side, and then I'm going to come back to what you were just talking about with the markets and, the pivots and all that, but with the building side, you have your own crews. I mean, are you outsourcing all the construction side? Did you bring that under your own roof? Like, how are you handling that? Because I used to be a huge flipper. We've done hundreds and hundreds of flips. And the biggest problem I always had right up until pretty much the last time I wanted to flip a house was contractors stealing from you, contractors not doing things, contractors doing shoddy work. How do you put a process in place that levels that out? And how have you done it?
Mm-hmm. So we in-housed project management / GC. So our project manager is essentially our GC in the field. We don't hire a contractor to run a project. Our guy does that. And so he runs individual trades. So they report to him, through him. All the payables go through the office, but he's got to green light them, which suggests that he needs to be on site, which is part of his responsibilities. Is he's got to touch every job every day. And he's got to make sure that whoever said they were going to be there is there. And the work that they said they would do, they are doing. And if they're not, it's his job to crawl up their ass and find out why they aren't there. That's been really powerful for us. It's the differentiator, frankly. I justify his overhead, his fully loaded labor for projects where you'd be giving away that GC premium, right? 20% of total construction cost goes to the GC. Well, if he's driving 4 projects, which he's doing more than that, we're banking those monies. And so it starts to make financial sense real fast as well. So you're more efficient and you're getting it done cheaper. So that's how we've done it. We run super lean. I don't have any subs. They're all subs, I should say. I don't have any tradesmen on my payroll.
That's smart. Yeah, we did the same thing, but we did it too late in the game. Mm-hmm. And the project manager / GC that we had, we didn't want to bring him on payroll. We basically just kept him as a 1099. And that was one of the biggest problems because we were doing 20 flips a month or even more sometimes. So we were paying him by the hours he spent at projects, and he just got a little loose with that. So there's a lot of things I wish I could go back and change, but I just kind of took a break. I'm on pause right now, sitting on the benches, waiting for that gameplay to come in. And that's when I'll get back, but that's smart. And I think that's a lot of knowledge for people to take is, if you try to do everything, you're not going to do anything well. So you brought the one thing that will help level your jobs out, which is the GC and the project manager. And he is the one that everybody's reporting to, which is keeping your hair from turning gray. Now I can see you got a little gray going and I got a lot too, but I feel like that's all because of contractors. I blame them for every bit of the gray hair in my head. But, that's smart, but a lot of people will never get to that point because they think they can't afford it. What would you say to somebody that's like, oh, I wish I could, if I was doing the deals you were, I'd have a project manager. But at what point should somebody know when it's time for them to find that person?
Yeah. So I have a model. I teach this, right? That's a limiting belief a lot of folks have. You're spot on. That guy or girl you can justify hiring them because think about it. You're going to do a 30, 60, 90 day onboarding if you do it right anyway. And if they're not hitting targets at day 30, 60, and 90, say they're a $40,000 a year person for just, ease of math, that's $10,000 you've committed to them in Q1 If at day 90, if they haven't done what they said they were going to do, if projects are falling apart, things are slipping through the cracks, you're firing them. You got to hire slow, fire fast. You get rid of them. So you haven't really made that big of a commitment financially. The other thing I would say is if you find an A player, like if you poach them from someone else, for example, right? And they're a $85,000 a year person instead of a $45,000 a year person. Well, get a retail job, right? I don't advocate for this, but if it's the only way you can justify bringing someone on, you can bid retail work. That way you don't have to front their labor. You don't have to front the payroll. You can get 50% of the cost of the job up front from a retail customer to do a kitchen and a bathroom, and then he drives that project. And that's what you're paying him with. And that's how I hired my first project manager. If I'm being honest, I just didn't have it. I couldn't at the time wrap my head around what it would cost to bring someone like that on. And I was already managing 8 projects myself. So I was spread real thin. I needed him, but I said, I can't afford him. And then I said, you know what I'll do? I'll take on a kitchen and a bathroom, and then we'll pay him with those monies. And that's how we got him on. So again, I would just say that's another one of those, like, limiting beliefs that we have as investors. You can afford him. Frankly, you can't afford not to get him, especially if you're scaling. If you're getting close to 3 to 4 projects, you're probably right there. You need someone.
I agree. And it's so funny you mentioned that because that's exactly how I did it. So our project manager came with a base salary of $120,000, well, 1099 salary. And at first I'm like, there's just no way we could do this, but I was so stressed. We probably had 20 properties going at that time, and I was losing my bloody mind. I had contractors stealing money. I had contractors not showing up, and I didn't know what was coming or going. So like, it was just a mandatory thing. I had to have it. But I couldn't afford that because all of our money was in the deals and we didn't have anything closing to actually front load that. So I did exactly what you said. I had other flippers in the area that were struggling with the same issues I was. And I basically went to them. I said, well, I have a project manager that could manage your job, and this is going to be the cost. And we basically helped them do the same thing, which that paid for him in those first early months. And then eventually, once we kind of got that under handle and got some of that stuff rolling, we really were able to kind of support him for all those years that we had him. And he's still out flipping houses. He moved to Florida. I think he's got like 4 houses going. So we stay in good contact. But another big mistake, and I'd like you to talk about this in real estate, is, when people get into it, they watch the shows. I guess I'm guilty because we had a show on HGTV, but they think that it's easy. They dive into it. And then all of a sudden they're in a flip, which is sucking all their cash. And then maybe they get another flip and it's sucking all their cash. They got all this cash going out, nothing coming in. How have you mitigated cash flow issues when you were scaling?
Yeah. Okay. That's so poorly is the truth at first. What I came to realize after you're bleeding, right? Like you've got 4 to 6 projects, you're fully drawn out. Some of them aren't selling. So my debt service is 25, 30K a month, and I'm not sleeping. I said, if I make it through this will never happen again. I will never underfund rehabs again, because that's what you're doing at the beginning as you're scaling. So what we've gone on to do now is we'll gap fund on the front end with friends and family money. We'll fund the construction and we'll fund the balance of the purchase and sometimes the construction with hard money or community bank financing. We've developed relationships there, or we'll bring private money lenders in on the back end as well for just the construction piece. So what I'm essentially saying is we overfund all our rehabs on the front end. And if it means I'm paying to service some debt that I'm not necessarily tapping for a few months, so be it. I'm at peace and I can continue to scale. When you're chasing closings and you're robbing Paul to pay Peter, you can't scale. You're mentally not in the frame of mind to be scaling, because you're just bleeding and you're wondering, where am I going to get that? Like, when's the next closing? When's the next closing? And God forbid there's a delay. So, to be honest, at the beginning, we were doing it poorly. We didn't have a strategy. Now we're very good about making sure that everything's funded. All the money that any deal needs is in that account tied to that LLC before we swing a hammer.
That's a good way to do it. And you had mentioned that you have some cash flowing properties too. So do you use any of the cash flowing properties to offset some of the outlays for the flips and all the holds that you have, or while you're trying to get stuff ready? Do you have a system for that?
No. So we keep everything, all the verticals are separate. If, like I alluded to earlier with regard to our supply division, like if the supply division sells to the ops division, it's clean. We do accounts payable and accounts receivable on both sides. I was guilty of in the restaurant business, like most restaurateurs are, of paper bagging everything. It's just how you operate, and good or bad, like that's the way that that industry is. And to an extent, that's the way this industry is too. I was just not going to do that again. I just said, all these verticals, they're different. Different QuickBooks, different bank accounts. If someone's going to lend to this deal, they're lending just to this deal. They're going to get a promissory note. They're going to get everything structured in the name of this LLC. So we keep everything really clean, which at the end of the year is great too, because you're not losing your mind trying to get your stuff ready for taxes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was something you said in there that we started using, and it was from the book Profit First, is segregated bank accounts. With every property we've done, within all the different companies that we had, every property had its own set of books classed out in QuickBooks, but we also had separate bank accounts. And I remember I had a project or a property manager that we brought on somewhere to manage. We had about 90 rentals. And I brought them on and they're like, this is crazy. Why do you have so many bank accounts? And I basically would say it keeps my books and records straight. When people lend me money, their money's only in one account. It's not mixed or convoluted with other projects where there's bleeding or leakage. So we started doing that and we got up, I think we had like 30 some bank accounts, and it drove the property manager absolutely bonkers. So like, why don't you just get one operating account, put all the money in there and pay everything? And I said, because when you do that, you'll have leakage, and that operating account becomes a black hole of money. And all of a sudden, poof, there's no money left. So that's a really smart thing to do. You're doing it with different silos and different, divisions. And we just did it with different, company structures, but each one was classed out in QuickBooks. So it's almost the exact same thing. We didn't have a supply division, but we had a rental division and rental holding companies. And then we had our flip companies, and the rental companies had their own thing, but we would lend money a lot of times from the rental companies over to the flip divisions. And we always charge 6%. And the reason for it, a lot of people, anybody that knows me, knows we teach, be your own bank, but that's a general banking strategy. You got to treat your money the same as you treat the bank's money. Your company couldn't just go to the bank, even a community bank, and get free money. So why would one of your companies lend money to another one of your companies at zero interest? You wouldn't do that. Look at what the bank would charge you and charge yourself the same thing. And that provides a write-off legitimately. And that's how we did it. So we constantly were lending money to and from. And like you said, accounts receivable, accounts payable. We just did it in the loan form with a promissory note. And that's how we did it. We made money just on interest, which is why I kind of evolved past flipping into just being the bank, and primary focus is just lending these days. So that's a good takeaway, really good takeaway. So moving forward, like where do you see, so you've been pivoting and evolving your business. So where do you see your business going in the next 3 years, since we can't go any further than that?
Yes, we're already taking steps in that direction. Like I suggested, with that, whatever your unique ability is, whatever that skill set is that you beat on your craft and you develop mastery in, that whole 10,000 hours thing, right? With Malcolm Gladwell, we've become experts at construction heavy value add rehabs. And if you can flip a house, you can flip an office building. And there's plenty of big players, like regional players in our market, that are doing that up and down the coast. And they're flipping, and they're doing 7 and 8 figure flips, not 6 figure flips. We chase 6 figure flips. They're chasing 7 and 8 figure flips, right? The office building that one of my offices is in was an 8 figure flip. It's incredible. And I look at it and it's just more, right? Sticks and bricks. It's not that complex. The financial structure is a little bit different, but the guys swinging the hammers, it's the same guys I'm using. Like, it's not that different. So that's what prompted us to foray into commercial. And so that's our new asset class. That's our new focus. And like I said earlier, I just think the timing is right. Their commercials getting slaughtered, right? You don't have to look very far. Go downtown, in whatever downtown you live in, ours is bleeding, right? There's just so much opportunity. So the thing is, you can't get carried away and you can't be buying things that don't make sense. But so anyway, we're retrofitting commercial. We took possession of what was a bunch of office suites for attorneys and accountants and surveyors and things like that. And highest and best use for this building is to retrofit it as a daycare center. And that's what we're doing now. And the construction piece is no different. A little bit more with regard to submissions than we're used to, but nothing different. And that's where we're focused now. And we're doing more stuff like that.
Wow. All right. So there's some big takeaways there, folks. So listen, if you didn't catch this, I'm gonna really pull out some important things that he just said that maybe it was intentional and maybe was not. Warren Buffett, the greatest investor of all time, says, when others are greedy, be fearful, and when others are fearful, be greedy. Or in other words, when there's blood in the streets, attack. So what he's doing here, even in a market like this, where so many people are saying, oh, there's just no opportunity, everything's way overpriced, he started looking for what isn't overpriced. What got devastated in COVID? Office spaces. People are working from home. Attorneys, they don't have a ton of people working there. They're all working remotely now. We figured out how to adapt and live in this Zoom world where we can actually operate in very efficiently. So in doing that, those asset classes have lost value. So Warren Buffett says, buy low. So they're buying low. And then he said, sell high and don't lose money. And that's the formula. But you can't buy high and sell high and expect that to continue. And that's unfortunately what people are doing right now. They're not looking where the bargain is. They're just going where everybody else is going. And when you follow everybody else, you get slaughtered eventually. So you're pivoting and you're running away from where everybody. So if everybody's running over here, single families and that, yes, you're doing those, but you're also now starting to pivot and look for where everybody's running from, which are these lost opportunities that you're buying probably at a really good price, and you're building a ton of value into them by providing what people need and want from things that they no longer need and want. That's very smart.
We're buying at replacement cost. That's how ridiculous it's getting. Like, I couldn't build what I just bought for what I bought it for. And I know what it costs to build. I build. And I just looked at the price. I said, this is insane. I couldn't recreate this for this price. And then on top of that, this one in particular, we got SBA debt on. It's free money. And debt is cheap now. You can get cheap money now. So if you can find stuff, again, there's got to be a use case that makes sense, right? So that's one thing I want to encourage people to do. Do some research and figure out what highest and best is for this undervalued asset. Just because you could buy it at replacement cost, if nobody wants to move into it, you're not going to do much with it. So, but that's what's out there. And that opportunity and others come from, I simply mined the MLS and LoopNet because I was getting a lot of feedback from my students that they can't find deals. I said, everything works if you work it. You can't find deals because you're not looking. And then did a 2-hour screen share where I found a deal, literally did what they could do with accesses they have, nothing special. And then found a deal, worked it, bought it. It's listen, you can't unsee that. And so I encourage your listeners to hey, if you're sitting there looking for holes and things to pick apart, again, that's that invisible script. There's nothing I'm doing. I'm not special. They can do this.
I love it. So as we kind of come to the end of this, tell me, during your journey, what's been your biggest internal obstacle that you've had to face?
Imposter syndrome. I mean, I think as an entrepreneur, we all battle a bit of that. Do I deserve to be successful? I was of the belief that success and wealth was for people with a different last name, right? People whose parents were born here 3 generations ago, people who went to Harvard. It's all bullshit. The most successful people I now know personally are people just like me, right? First generation immigrants who barely made it through school, who know how to bring value. And so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I live in a house in a town. On paper, you would say this kid has no business living there. In fact, I would bring my lunch to a park around the corner from where I currently live for years while I was getting started flipping. And I would eat my lunch in that park and envision myself living here. I'm not just talking about daydream vision, right? I walked in and out of these houses. I had pictured myself celebrating holidays here. This was where I was going to live. And then I went and did the work, and that came to fruition. So I would say that, again, I keep making reference to limiting beliefs and that invisible script in people's heads. It's all bullshit. And you need to get around other people. If people in your circle aren't selling you the dream, they're selling you a nightmare. So find people that will sell you the dream, people that believe in you, and together you guys will level up. And that's what I did. And I'm blessed for that.
That's important. That's a very, very important thing. That limiting belief that people have is what keeps them stuck. And I love how you went into that park and you envisioned yourself and you did it over and over. You didn't just do it once and like, oh, well, that was boring. You just kept doing it because every time you just created a new memory and your mind didn't know any different. Your body might have known you were just there kind of pretending or just envisioning it, but your mind didn't know any different. And the more you did it, the more it just became embedded or encoded in your mind. Nothing else could have happened besides having that. And God, I got so many stories, but I'm not going to get into them. I mean, any successful person that I've ever met has similar stories to that. They've had to dream themselves and envision themselves doing what they were dreaming of. And once they did that over and over and they never gave up on it, it always happens every single time, not 90% of the time, not 50% of the time, every step or every single time. And, there's a thing I read in a book, by Gary Keller, The One Thing. And he says, anything you ask of life, life will grant you. That sounds cliche, but that is the absolute truth. But there's a little bit more to that. And I urge all of you to take action, read The One Thing, read Napoleon Hill's, books, read 3 Feet from Gold. I mean, all of them, Traction. That's where you're going to get the knowledge. So, Gabe, where can people learn more about you and more about your masterminds, your coaching, and just watch what you're doing?
Yeah, I would say the first place to start is the hub is GabeDaSilva.com. You can go to my website there, and from there you can link through to everything else. For folks that are earlier in their journey, I've got a docu-series on YouTube called The Build, where I had a videographer follow me around for 6 months and document what it is that we do day in and day out. That'll quickly tell you if you're cut out for fix and flip. You might watch that, love it, or you might watch that and say, I don't want any part of that.
Yeah, the water in the basement one's good.
Yeah. And if it's a fit for you, you can dig deeper. Again, like you said, we've got events and workshops and things like that for folks that really want to get into it. And but again, the hub is GabeDaSilva.com. Start there and kind of explore my world. Reach out to me at Real Gabe DaSilva on any of the socials. It's still me in the DMs. It's still me on Messenger. So, and I reply to every single one. So I encourage people to message me there, and I'd love to connect offline.
Fantastic. So folks, get around the campfire, check out his website, check out The Build. I started getting into it. It's pretty entertaining, and holy crap, will that ever tell you whether or not this is right for you or not? Because the little bit I saw, man, no thanks. Even though I've done it, I've been there in the trenches. I look back and I'm like, I don't want to do that now. So everybody's got to find their own journey. And folks, the biggest thing as we wrap this episode up is there's only one difference between success and failure. And that difference is creation. Go out there and create the life you want, create the dream you want, create the house you want by sitting in a park, eating a sandwich, envisioning actually what it would be like to pass presents out in the house, in the neighborhood that you've always dreamed about being in. For those of you that don't want to succeed, well, conform to what everybody else tells you your life should be. Have a good day, folks. Thanks for joining us on this episode. Gabe, it was a pleasure.
Thanks for having me, brother.